Hi guys, it's Reilly with another all-English episode. So I'm recording this on Wednesday night, but maybe you might be listening to this on the weekend. And if it is Saturday, then I'm currently in Osaka watching the finals and third place match of the Pacific Nations Cup, which I realize might not be that popular in Japan, but so for the last few weeks, there's been a tournament between Japan, the USA, Canada, Fiji, Tonga, and Samoa in rugby. And I watched most of the games on TV, but I'm going to go to the game in Osaka at Hanazono Rugby Stadium to watch the third place match between the USA and Samoa and the finals between Japan and Fiji. And so I don't have a jersey of either the USA or Japan, the two teams that I'm obviously rooting for in those games. And I imagine they're pretty expensive to buy in the stadium, so I maybe have to choose one. So I'm thinking if I should buy a USA jersey and be probably one of the few people in the stadium wearing one, or blend in and get a Japan jersey. It might be solved for me if they just don't sell USA jerseys in the stadium, because I'm pretty sure they'll sell Japan jerseys. But yeah, anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing on the weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, so before we get started with the episode, which will not be about rugby, I should say my Instagram is Reilly Sullivan XD, and Sota is eigonosota. All right, let's get going. Okay, so yeah, today I'm gonna do another kind of, I guess, weather-related episode. We've kind of been doing a lot about natural disasters and how to stay cool and stuff like that. And I'm gonna be doing, I guess, one more about kind of temperatures and dealing with temperatures in the U.S. versus Japan. So I should start off by saying that in the U.S., obviously, depending on where you are, the temperature is very different. I mean, in Japan, it's fairly different. Obviously, Okinawa and Hokkaido are quite different. But there's a lot of different kinds of climates, I guess you could say, all across the U.S. So, like, in the southeast, which is, like, Florida and that kind of area, it's maybe somewhat similar to Kagawa, I'd say. It's pretty hot and humid in the summer, and then the winter is somewhat mild. I think it pretty much never snows in Florida, and similar to Kagawa here, it doesn't snow very much at all. In the southwest, which is Arizona, New Mexico, west parts of Texas, stuff like that, it's going to be really hot in the summer, but dry. A lot of that area is kind of desert. And then in the winter, it's going to be, somewhat mild, although places like New Mexico have mountains, so that you can get snow up in those areas, but probably not in a place like Phoenix, Arizona. You probably don't get much snow, I'm guessing. And then, the West Coast, so California, Oregon, Washington, it's, I would say, like, pretty mild year round. I know, like, California is famous for having really good weather pretty much all the time. Like, it just about never snows in LA. Probably pretty rarely snows even up north in, like, San Francisco and stuff like that. And it doesn't get that hot. I mean, of course, in LA it can get hot, but I don't think it even gets as hot as it does in like Kagawa, for example, and certainly not in San Francisco. And then Oregon and Washington are somewhat similar, maybe a bit colder, but I don't think in like the major cities it snows all that much there either, although they're pretty famous for being rainy a lot of the year. And then in the Midwest, that's like, Chicago or Iowa, stuff like that. You get pretty hot, somewhat humid summers, and then like really cold, really snowy winters. And then in the Northeast, which I'm going to count Maryland as the Northeast, where I'm from, although it's kind of in the middle of the East Coast, the summers are pretty hot and humid. I would say, yes, pretty similar to most of Japan. And then the winters are, at least in Maryland, pretty cold. It snows usually a few times a year. Sometimes it snows a lot. And as you go further north, New York, Boston, or even north of that, you get colder, snowier winters. So yeah, okay. But then talking about like how people actually deal with those temperatures, I think there's some kind of interesting differences. A lot of it is going to be clothing and stuff like that. I would say the first one, maybe the most noticeable one, is that in most of the U.S., it's pretty acceptable for men to not wear a shirt when they're outside, especially, if they're in their own land, I guess you could say, like on their own yard. Then you'll often see like dads not wearing a shirt while they mow the lawn, like while they cut the grass. They often won't be wearing a shirt. And some shops, like a lot of, like a McDonald's or other kinds of fast food restaurants or shops like that, will have signs on the door that say no shirt, no shoes, no service, which means, if you come in here and you're not wearing a shirt or you're not wearing shoes, then we won't serve you. You can't buy food or buy whatever the shop sells if it's not a restaurant. Which suggests, that if they have to have that sign, then a lot of people are not wearing a shirt or not wearing shoes, maybe while they drive their car or something like that. And I think that's pretty rare in Japan. At least I don't see people with their shirts off almost ever, unless I'm at the beach or at the pool or something like that. But, even if somebody's like out gardening, in front of their house or something, in the U.S. it'd be pretty common for a man to not be wearing a shirt while he's like watering the flowers or gardening or something like that. In Japan, I don't think I've ever seen that. And yeah, especially like speaking of beaches, if it's like a beach town or a town near the sea, then it's much more common to see people, obviously men, not wearing shirts almost anywhere. I remember when I was last visiting my mom. She lives in a beach town kind of in North Carolina, and I remember seeing people like riding their bikes not really that close to the beach, maybe a couple miles from the beach. I mean, it's possible that they were going to go swim at the beach or something, but I didn't see like a towel or any of the other things that you would usually have if you're going to the beach. So I think these people were not wearing shirts. And so, yeah, I think it's just generally more common to not wear a shirt if you're in a town where people go to the beach a lot. Maybe it's just more acceptable to not have a shirt on. I think I even remember, shops near the beach, it would be totally okay to go in there and not wear a shirt. I'm not sure if that's the case in Japan. To be honest, I haven't been to a lot of shops near the beach. Most of the beaches I go to are fairly, rural, I guess you could say. Some of the islands in the Seto and stuff like that don't have a lot of shops. Yeah, I would say also, like, compared to Japan, you very rarely see parasols, like sun umbrellas. I know in Japan, women use them quite a lot. If they're walking outside, they'll have an umbrella to protect them from the sun. In the U.S., you might see it. I mean, it's possible. I don't know if it would really be weird to see something like that, but it's not very common. I know my mom never did when I was growing up. And I don't think any of my friends' moms or any other women I knew did. And just in general, I would say with like people wear less clothing in the summer, both men and women in the U.S. Like for women, it's totally normal to wear like a tank top, like a sleeveless shirt in the summer. Whereas in Japan, I mean, it's maybe acceptable. It's not like I don't know what to say, obscene. It's not inappropriate to not have sleeves, but I don't see it very much. I mean, I would say most women have sleeves in the summertime, and maybe short sleeves, but like in the U.S., no sleeves at all, like a tank top would be common. And then for men in Japan, I sometimes see men wearing shorts in the summertime, but it's kind of rare, to be honest. I see a lot of men wearing longer pants, even in the summer, where in the U.S., pretty much everyone wears shorts in the summertime. If they're going to work or something like that, then yeah, they would probably wear pants. But like, just walking down the street, on a Saturday or something like that, most men are probably going to wear shorts, I think, especially like younger men. Maybe older men, like 50 plus might wear pants. That might be a generational thing, but most younger men, middle-aged men maybe would probably be wearing shorts in the summer. Yeah, I think that's about it for summer as far as what people do. I know I talked before a little bit about like water and stuff like that, especially as a kid. I don't know. Maybe there's a couple more things like portable fans. I don't think those are super common in the U.S., although they maybe could have become common more recently, and I just haven't been there in a while and haven't noticed it. Stuff like wearing those like cool, I don't know exactly what they're called, the kind of like cooling things that you stick onto like the back of your neck or onto your back or something like that. Those aren't super common. And then maybe that's a good transition to talk about winter. I think one of the major differences in the way people deal with the cold in the US is that it's not super common for people to use like hand warmers, the kind of packets that you put into your gloves that you shake and then they get warm, or the kind that you kind of like stick onto your body to stay warm if the office is going to be cold or even if it's just cold outside. Those aren't so common. I mean, we have them. I remember we had hand warmers or boot warmers, but as a kid, I only ever wore them like if I was going skiing or if I was going sledding. Basically, like if I was going to be out playing in the snow for hours, then I would wear it. But if I was just going to school or, just walking around town, going to the shops or whatever in winter, I wouldn't use hand warmers. And I would say another kind of weird one, maybe this is changing a little bit, but I think at a lot of parts of the US, men don't wear scarves very much. Like a scarf, it's kind of, some men see wearing a scarf as being like kind of European or being like girly in some way. Now, I think that's probably more true in the rural countryside areas of the U.S. and in the city or whatever. Wearing a scarf is completely normal for men or women. But that's one of the things that I thought of. Like, oh yeah, like if you wear a scarf in a country town in the U.S., somebody might say something like, "Oh, what do you think? You're French or something like that." I don't know why scarves are seen as French or even girly, but I think they are. Maybe still. But definitely when I was younger, they were. Another one, and this is hard for me because to talk about winter and compare Japan and the U.S., Kagawa, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't really have winter. I mean, it gets cold here, but it's only, a few days a year that it gets below zero in the daytime. Like it gets below zero at night, in January or February maybe, pretty regularly, but like for the high, the highest temperature of the day to be below zero is extremely rare, I think, in Kagawa. Whereas in Maryland, it happened, probably most of January would be like that, some of December, some of February, whatever. So for me, there's never really a time in Kagawa, when there's snow on the ground for like a week or a month or even longer. if you compare that to like some places in the US where, when it's wintertime, there is snow on the ground pretty much from like whenever it first snows in November until all the snow melts in March. In places like Vermont or obviously Alaska, but Alaska's kind of special. There'd just be snow on the ground all the time. But anyway, Kagawa, it doesn't have that. So a lot of the kind of winter clothing and stuff is not so necessary here. Like, I don't have winter boots here. I have like some kind of hiking boots or like rain boots that I might wear if there's like a little bit of snow on the ground. But other than that, I kind of wear just like regular shoes with thick socks if it's cold outside. I don't really have winter boots. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of people who live in Kagawa because it doesn't snow. You don't really need snow boots or winter boots so much. I'm sure in other parts of Japan, in Aomori or Hokkaido or whatever, I'm sure people have snow boots, but maybe that's just a Kagawa thing. Yeah, I think for winter, that's kind of about all I can think of because, yeah, again, I don't have that many experiences with winter in Japan, except for skiing, which is, kind of special, I guess. So I think I'll leave it there. I hope that was kind of interesting, some of the differences between the US and Japan as far as dealing with high and low temperatures. I think probably the major one is summer and just how little clothing people in the US wear sometimes. But that's going to do it for me. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Bye.